Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kris. I just did another shot of wild turkey. Oh, feeling good. So this is Grimm Life Collective. Hold on. I don't drink it because it's a delicious taste. I drink it because it's 50% alcohol. And when you're trying to get from A to buzzed, A to B, it works pretty good. I drank pretty good. So, I don't know if anyone seen the movie The Exorcist. I'm going to say you probably have. This is the real story behind The Exorcist. I read a book on it some years back. It took place in St. Louis. And I just remember that they have some of the furniture from that home. It was moved to a military base in Missouri or Illinois. And it's in a, excuse me, it was put in a hangar that people started hearing weird noises, so they moved all the stuff out of the hangar into a like an underground facility, and they covered it over, so there's no longer access to it at all. No, that's all besides the point. Let's get to the video.
When it comes to scary movies.
By the way, I don't know if any of you have seen The Exorcist or you like it, care for it. True story behind it. It wasn't a girl, it was a boy. And as far as I know, I think he's still alive today. 80s. Would be in his 80s. I don't know. Sorry.
The Exorcist is considered one of the scariest movies of all time. In fact, when it came out, people who went to go see it got so sick and was so bothered by it that people even threw up in the aisles. Some people even ran out of the theaters, and to this day, people won't watch it. People are terrified of this movie, probably because it's based off of actual events.
My father went with my uncle at the time, and they saw it at the theater, and he said that it was the scariest movie he'd ever seen because of the head thing. He said it freaked him out.
That took place in both Maryland and here in St. Louis. Right down this street, actually. Getting a little nervous about this one.
I went to check it out. The manager of the National Theater in Westwood says that there indeed are at least a dozen people who faint or become ill during every showing. But The Exorcist is still drawing sellout houses for every performance, complete with lines around the block. I spent an evening in the lobby just to see if people really do come stumbling out in the middle of the picture, as reported. They did, so I asked them why.
It just scared me to death. Things just like this really scare me to death. I'm just nervous.
Do you remember what particular scene it was that
When she was in, what was it? When she was in a room, the doctors came in, and I guess it was when she was talking the devil's voice. Oh God, I can't believe it.
Are you going to go back in and see more of the movie now?
Probably, yeah.
What are you going to do right now?
I don't want to see it, but my curiosity's killing me. I have to see it.
I fainted like 10 minutes after the first beginning of the movie. And I walked out and they gave me some water.
Yeah. Do you remember what caused you to faint?
Well, they started that spinal tap or whatever, so. And I started closing my eyes, and I could hear the gagging, and I was getting sicker, and I walked up the aisle with my friend, and I was just ready to pass out.
Yeah.
I passed out in about the first half hour, yeah.
Do you remember what it was, what scene it was that affected you so much?
Convulsions, when she took convulsions. Because I have a little girl, and it was like watching my little girl.
I think it's disgusting.
Why?
I don't know, it doesn't make me want to get sick like everybody says. It just, my legs are just going, "Nyeh," and I want to go in the lobby and not watch it, and I have to cover my ears.
What was it that made that happen?
Just when she started talking like devil coming out of her. Bleh.
How about you?
I can't even describe it. It's so horrible. It just...
Are you guys
I don't know why I waited 4 hours to see that.
The devil made her did it, I bet.
Oh, nice.
Wherever I come, it's coming my way. Wherever I go, is that it stays. Good luck never stays a day. My bad luck's always coming my way.
The devil made her do it, I bet.
For those
If you're an Illinois homeowner that pays more than $67 a month for electricity, you may qualify to go solar for $0 out of pocket.
It was the timing of the comment. The devil made her do it, I bet. It was the timing of it. It was so just clean, just boom, boom.
For those of you who do not know, The Exorcist follows a 12-year-old girl by the name of Reagan, who's played by Linda Blair. And after playing with a Ouija board, she contacts a spirit that she calls Captain Howdy.
They're going to get into it, but the book that I read, the boy, I don't remember the Ouija board part, but I'm sure that's accurate. But the boy had an aunt that I thought was like kind of clairvoyant, and they think that whatever it was attached to the boy through the aunt, because the aunt died. My apologies. I'm just trying to go from what I remember, and I just had a terrible wild turkey burp.
Becomes possessed, and things just kind of take a very nasty turn, and people never look at pea soup the same again.
Yeah.
The movie The Exorcist, directed by William...
Pea soup and her hair is green. Did you notice that? I just did. Did you notice that? You're lucky you're cute.
Friedkin is actually based off of a novel by William Peter Blatty, who got the inspiration for his book from a newspaper article about a 14-year-old boy who was supposedly demon-possessed.
Now, I found out through your biography that you had actually researched an exorcist that happened with a boy back in 1950-something, was it?
It was 1949,
okay,
when I first heard of it.
And how did that inspire you to write?
Well, imagine hearing about, for the first time in your life, having never heard of possession, hearing the details, so-called details, of an alleged case of demonic possession going on in your neighborhood while you're attending classes at Georgetown University. I mean, it was absolutely startling. And I thought at the time that if one could adduce enough evidence to demonstrate that this was most probably authentic, what a tremendous piece of evidence for our hopes for immortality of the soul, our hopes for everything I was being taught by the Jesuits at Georgetown being an absolute fact. We all want to put our fingers into the wound in the hand of Christ.
Now, I guess that's the big difference between fact and fiction. In the movie, it's a 12-year-old girl, Reagan, but in real life, it's a 14-year-old boy known as Roland Doe. Now, the church never gave the identity of the boy up until recently. Well,
and I don't think that's his picture either.
Actually, they never gave the identity of the boy. Internet sleuths were able to figure it out and track down the location, so much respect to them. Now, here's the real story in a nutshell. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of stories and a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation. Now, right now, I'm walking down a sidewalk on Roanoke Drive to the house here in St. Louis where the exorcism took place. But it originally started in Maryland. But it got so bad, people got hurt, that the family, after seeing the word Lewis cut into Roland Doe's body, they took that as a sign to come here to St. Louis, where they had some close family. Okay. Now here's where the story starts to get a little strange. Supposedly Roland Doe, we're going to talk about his name a little bit later on, had an aunt by the name of Aunt Harriet, who was a bit of a spiritualist, and she was the one who introduced Roland Doe to a Ouija board, and they used to play it together. Okay. Now, kind of mirroring the movie, Roland Doe started playing with the Ouija board by himself. And not too long after she died, he started playing with it, trying to contact her. It was roughly, according to reports that I've read, 11 days after her death, where strange things, like really strange things moving, things started to get violent, like poltergeist activity. Those started 11 days after Aunt Harriet's death. Now, I do want to point out as well that in the movie, The Exorcist, it was the Catholic Church that was performing the exorcism, but in real life, since the family was Lutheran, they actually seek the help of Lutheran church officials. It wasn't until they moved here to St. Louis when the Catholic Church got involved.
I also want to just point out that I read that book. So this is unrelated, but we did a scary tour of Alton, Illinois, which we didn't really notice anything, but it's one of the like scariest small towns on earth kind of thing. Really cool little small town, actually. A lot of history. And the guy who gave us the tour was the author of the book. Alton, Illinois is not too far. I mean, across the river you can get to St. Louis. It's not too far away. And so this guy wrote a book on, he had a website at one time. It was like Midwest Hauntings of the Midwest or something like that. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. Yeah, why would I? He had nothing to do with this. But the book that I read, this is what I'm trying to get to. The book that I read about this case was 2010, maybe. So I'm trying to remember things from like 12 years ago. And I've been drinking. So it's really difficult. I'm trying to remember some things. So I apologize. And I'm pausing an awful lot, really dragging this video on. So I'm sorry.
Now, when Roland Doe and his family came out here to St. Louis, this is where their close family was living, at 8435 Roanoke Drive in the Belle Noire section of St. Louis. Now, I reached out to the family and I thought we had something set up, but sadly we can't get inside the house to see where Roland Doe's bedroom was. But it is believed to be on the second floor, don't know where the exorcism here in St. Louis took place. Well, the beginning of it. Everything that went on inside this house was very well documented by one of the priests who was there for the exorcism. Yes. He actually kept a pretty detailed diary of it. In fact, that diary was actually used by William Peter Blatty whenever he was writing the book. So that's kind of cool, a little piece of information, right? Yeah. Now, things inside this house.
It wasn't and I apologize for pausing it. I know you don't care about what I have to say. You're interested in this. It wasn't the main priest. It was one of the others that was helping. And they used, in the movie, I shouldn't say that, because I don't remember the movie. I've seen it, but it's been a while. God damn, I want to see that movie now. In the hospital, which maybe it was Maryland. It must have been Maryland. Or was two. So I apologize. It was either the kid went to the hospital at one point to try to be diagnosed, like what was going on. And during the exorcism, no, it was St. Louis. During the exorcism, I'm so sorry. They had local football players from the college show up, you know, big strong guys to hold the kid down. And these guys were thrown all over the room, and they were like, nope, we ain't coming back. So I don't remember why I paused to talk about that. I should stop drinking.
Started getting violent, just like in Washington, D.C. Instead of somebody being cut, there was one point where Roland Doe actually broke free and punched one of the priests in the nose, breaking his nose in the process. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it was only about 2 weeks that the exorcism was actually here, taking place inside this house. He was only in here for 2 weeks until he was moved to another location. Now, here in St. Louis, to be completely honest, there's 3 different locations that the exorcism took place. When you think of The Exorcist, I know you think of the house and the stairs made famous from that terrifying movie. And yes, I said terrifying movie because it still terrifies me when I watch it today. I absolutely love religious horror. But we walk history. There's so much more to the story. I heard once, or maybe I read somewhere, that every story is based off of real life, right? I mean, I guess that's the human nature. Everything, every bit of creativity is based off of something that happened in real life. And this is just part of the story of The Exorcist. Now, before we head out to the other locations, let's go ahead and give you the true identity of the little boy. His name was Ronald Hunkeler. I think that's how you say it.
I don't think the name of the boy should have been said, and if I could have edited it out in any way, I would have, out of respect, but just because.
Hunkeler. Now, Ronald, a little bit of difference from Ronald and Roland.
And the reason why they called him Ronald Doe was to keep the name quiet, was out of respect. I understand why he would give the name. I disagree with releasing it, but my edit software sucks, and I would edit it out of respect.
And from the priest's diary, he lived a full life. In fact, I think he actually worked for NASA for quite a few years, and he retired. He's passed away now, and if I'm not mistaken, he's buried in Maryland. Not too.
So if he truly has passed, then I'm okay with giving it away because it wouldn't have affected him. Although it would affect the family, but the kids are different. They have, it didn't affect them. But I really don't know if this is his picture or not.
Too far from where the movie The Exorcist took place.
I apologize for talking so much. Oh, that wasn't me. It was. I'm sorry. I don't care about them. We're Exorcist.
Our next stop in the story of the exorcism here in St. Louis brings us to this church in downtown St. Louis. In fact, not too far down the road that you're looking at is the Fox Theater. Now, you have to keep in mind that when it comes to history, things change all the time. The exorcism took place in 1949, and at the time of recording this, it is 2022, which means it was over 73 years ago that this took place. Now, this church is still standing. It's probably one of the most beautiful ones here in St. Louis, but the exorcism actually took place in the back of this church briefly. I think it was maybe a month that they were here, but way in the back there was a rectory. It's no longer standing. They actually tore it down to make way for a newer building. But this is where Roland Doe was held, where they performed parts of the exorcism back in 1949. Just want to walk back here and just kind of get a feel. I mean, come on, 73 years ago, of course, things are going to change. But it's still pretty wild to just be walking this history. There is a plaque here talking about some of the history that happened here, but I know it's not the happiest of moments here in St. Louis, but I was really hoping that there'd be something stating, hey, this is where this famous, infamous piece of horror history happened. But nothing.
Of all
I
those
get that.
places, I don't think the church would acknowledge such a thing, really.
Nope.
Right? I mean, even at the time, they were so hush-hush about it.
Yeah.
They're hush-hush about, like, exorcisms today. You don't, I mean, they don't publicly say, yeah, we're going to insert country here because of an exorcism. Like, they don't announce it. They keep it quiet. I think it's a, I don't think they want to brag about demons in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, in some weird way, they're not trying to say, yeah, possessions are totally real. They don't want you to think, they want you to believe that the devil is real, but they don't want you to how am I trying to say this? They don't want you to look for it. So if they don't acknowledge that an exorcism happened there, you won't seek out a demon. You will go to church to look for the Lord. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, I apologize. If it does, then we're here right now.
Kind of hush-hush.
Right after the movie The Exorcist came out, the church was not too happy about how it was depicted. I'm talking like green pea soup and crucifixes going into places they probably shouldn't have been going. And the funny thing about what happened, they said, no, that's not how we roll. That's not how exorcisms happen. But they never once denied that an exorcism took place here in 1949. Dare I say, it definitely is a beautiful day for an exorcism.
It's a nice church.
Oh, man. So this is a church that's on the corner of the St. Louis University, one of the biggest university here in St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how many students know the history like this. Directly behind the church is this building right here, and obviously it's a lot newer. It says the St. Francis Xavier College Church Parish Center. I don't know if this is where the rectory was, but it's definitely behind the building. And everything that we read online, the exorcism actually took place behind the building in the rectory. So we're just gonna go ahead and say that this was it. And we saw a sign that you can actually go into the parish center and buy some candles. So we're gonna go up inside and see if there's something we can take home from the Exorcist church. Because of everything that's going on in the world, they're only allowing one person in the office at a time. So I have no idea what's going on inside there. Jessica, she was the first in, so I'm just hanging back and hoping, fingers and bones crossed, that maybe we can get a candle from this place. A little, exorcism candle, whatever you want to call it. While waiting though, here's a view from the front steps of the parish center. St. Louis is definitely a place with a bunch of history. Sadly, a lot of it is abandoned or burned down or left to rot. But there still is so much beauty here. When it comes down to it, this is really just a small stop on our story about the exorcism that happened here back in 1949. Again, the building out back is no longer here, so there's really nothing to see, but as walkers of history, you kind of have to stop. It's walking history, walking the steps of this famous incident that inspired so much nightmares and horror. Not only for a family, but for countless of people who watched the movie and read the book. At this point, I'm just walking around the building, exploring.
I didn't read the book about The Exorcist. I read a book about the true story behind it, so it didn't cover any of the movie aspect. Just to clarify.
Came across this little staircase that goes down underneath the parish. Let's get down here so you can see this. There's some artwork down here. I am loved, I am worthy, I am safe, I am seen, I am forgiven, I am not alone. Wow. Even though Pretty much everything that took place back here in 1949 was in the back of the church. We're gonna walk through the church right now to show what it looks like, because it's beautiful. We're gonna keep it quiet because there are people in there praying and, you know, doing what they do. Everything's so quiet.
Wow.
Wow. Truly beautiful.
I don't care.
The third stop on our St. Louis exorcism tour brings us to the corner of...
Now, I just want to say, from what I remember about the book, whatever floor they were on, that the boy was on, Ronald Doe, that's what I'm going to call him, just because. Whatever floor he was on, the exorcism took place. I want to say after they left, they started having issues with that floor, the entire floor. And after a while, the hospital just considered it like an irrelevant floor, and you didn't go there anymore. And they left everything alone. That was in that book that I read. Now, I'm sure times have changed, but that was from the book, from what I remember.
Broadway and Osage Street. Now what you're looking at right now is the St. Alexia Hospital. It didn't look like this back in 1949, but you see that concrete wall, that rock wall that's right there? Now it's a parking lot, but back in 1949 there was a building that stood here, and this is where the little boy was brought, and this is where the final battle between good and evil took place. Now, I swear this wasn't intentional. It's kind of an unconscious nod to the movie The Exorcist, but if you look right across the street here, there's a lamppost. Now, the story goes, after the little boy, Roland Doe, was successfully exorcised, that good won and the devil went back to hell, supposedly they sealed up that room and nobody ever went in it again. And then the building was torn down. But this is it. Crazy, right? Doing these mini documentaries for YouTube, I often find
I knew about the room, but I had heard the floor. Maybe that was just wrong.
myself wondering why there are no plaques or anything describing or commemorating the history, good or bad, that happened in these locations. Now, the hospital has been long closed, but whenever it was open, so rumor is, story is, however you want to call it, on their website they had a page talking about what happened here on property. Went looking for it. Since the hospital is closed, the website is sadly gone. But even though so much has changed, no matter how hard you try, you can't erase the history that happened on the property. You just can't. Our fourth and final stop on our St. Louis exorcism tour brings us to Calvary Cemetery. Now, if we were to keep going straight down this road, it's the Bellefontaine Cemetery where the Lemps are buried, and Clark from Lewis and Clark's expedition, they're buried there. Here in this cemetery, however, there's a whole bunch of priests, including one in particular.
Clark from Lewis and Clark, so his older brother, see, Meriwether Clark was the younger brother of, man, the name is just slipping my mind. And I know if you're in Louisville, Kentucky, You're yelling at me right now because he founded Louisville, Kentucky. George Rogers Clark. For some reason, I always think Dallas Rogers Clark. George Rogers Clark was the older brother of Meriwether. No, that was Meriwether Lewis. Did I say Meriwether Clark? That wasn't right. Meriwether Lewis and Clark. Anyways, George Rogers Clark, older brother, and he founded Louisville. He was also a Revolutionary War hero, I believe a general, fought in the frontier, and he is credited for taking Fort Sackville. Fort Sackville is an amazing story, has nothing to do with this, but, you know, names and history, and so I just jumped to it because that's what I do.
That we've come here to see. Now we're in section 33 of this cemetery, and this is where you'll find the final resting place of Reverend William Bowdern. Now, Reverend Bowdern, he was the chief priest that was overseeing the exorcism back in 1949. In fact, go a little further with this one. In the movie The Exorcist, his character was portrayed by Max von Sydow.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Now, Jessica's really good at locating the graves in the cemetery. Now, we weren't sure entirely where he was buried, but Jessica was smart and she found where all the other reverends were. And this is it. And there it is. Just a simple stone. Reverend William S. Bowdern, 1897 to 1983. Again, he was the chief exorcist, the chief priest in the exorcism in the 1949 exorcism of Roland Doe, which we know his name. Crazy, right?
Hmm.
And there it is. Just a simple stone, Reverend William S. Bowdern, 1897 to 1983. Again, he was the chief exorcist, the chief priest in charge of the 1949 exorcism of Roland Doe. Now, of course, we know Roland's real name. And how wild is it to be standing right here, paying respects? The wind is really starting to pick up out here in the cemetery. That's okay. I think that's pretty much it for our tour, our visit of the Exorcist locations here in St. Louis from 1949, 73 years ago at the time of filming this. It's funny, we get a lot of requests to come out here and visit the exorcism house. And we try to take requests and make them happen. We do a lot of research, so we knew about this place, and Jessica being from here, we wanted to come back and it was on our agenda, so it was pretty special to do that. And of course, we don't like to just visit one little place. We want to visit everything. We want to try to tell as much of a complete story as we possibly can, because after all, it is history and it is people's lives. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another grim adventure. And as always, happy Halloween.
Well, that was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Don't know if you did, but it is what it is. So like and subscribe, or the Exorcist demon is going to come and take all your toes. Have a good day. Have a good night.